Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the show with no name. Is this our first one for 2024? I think it is.
First one.
Yeah, it
No,
is.
we did the resolution thing, right?
Oh,
We
we did.
shit
That's
on
right. That's right.
resolutions.
We did.
Yeah.
We crapped on them.
I saw
Ladies
that
and
as well.
gentlemen, I'm going to hand it off over to Wesley.
Awesome. All right. So as you can tell, there's a man that looks like a James Bond type of figure. So we actually, ironically, we've worked on two offers together, all three of us in the past couple of years. So privileged to know him, and he's, aside from being a stud, he's recently won an award with UCM for being like the personal brand of the year award or something like that.
Yeah, it's like personal branding with excellence. You know, they had to throw that in there. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
basically just being on it and consistent with personal branding. So that was a cool moment.
Yeah. So I think initially I was going to ask about just like our general thoughts on like why it's important to personal brand, but everybody knows that. I think what's even cooler is your 180 that you did, that you, because like, and I think this is obvious, right? Like at the beginning of the year, you were kind of just like doing what we all do, where we kind of, we're doing our job and we post when we want to, but then you really seem to like pick it up at the end of the year. Unless I'm wrong, maybe I just noticed you at the end of the year, but like you started to put the YouTube out and you're doing stories and you have like this twist. So like what changed? What like epiphany did you have, and why do you feel like it's so important to like double down on personal branding in 2024?
Yeah, great question. Fantastic way to kick it off. I don't know. I think, and by the way, you're right. It was like towards the end of that 2023. I think maybe like, let's say like the last 3-4 months. So it was in that last quarter. And why? What was your question again? Why do I feel like personal branding is so impactful, or what exactly did you say?
What was like the 180 that made you kind of really
Mm.
ramp it up and like crush it out the gate at the end of the year last year?
Yeah, so I think it wasn't like that one spectacular moment. I think it was like almost like a build up of things. And I remember just sitting in like in my flat back in London where I was at that time. And I was like on TikTok for ages. You know, when you just do the scroll, and I was just looking at everybody else's shit. I was thinking, what am I doing? Like I'm paying so much attention to all these random voices and people who I don't know and I don't care about. And it is a bit of a relaxer, you know, I do still do that. But then I just looked at my watch and like an hour and a half had gone by, and I'd had a really good day of sales. Like I think there was 2 or 3 deals closed. It was a really good day. The conversations were fluent. They were just very, very good and articulated well. And I was like, why don't I just start making content about that rather than taking pictures of like my lunchtime meal deal and saying how awful it is. I could just talk about things I've experienced. And then people always ask me, oh, what do you do? What do you do? And I was like, well, there's a correlation between me taking photos of things that people don't understand and me doing the thing that people don't understand, and it's sales. So I was like, just talk about it more on a social aspect, on a professional aspect, and then
Right.
just enjoyed it. I just get going with it. So that was probably the turning point.
Yeah. Yeah, because I definitely noticed it, and I think a lot of people struggle with this, especially when they're starting out, which is probably like most of the audience that we're talking to right now, which is like you don't know like the first thing to do, but it's
Yeah.
almost just like it's almost like just we talked about this on one of our other calls, Marco, is like just like doing it and just taking action, even if it's like ugly, like this podcast. We don't even have a name. We haven't edited it. We were sitting, remember, like 3 weeks, we were like, all right, we got to figure out the editing, and we're like, dude, let's just
Three
post
weeks,
it. Who
more
cares?
like months.
Yeah, months of like just
going
like
back and forth
deliberating and dicking around.
and then it's just like, let's, at some point we got to do this, right?
Yeah,
I do want to bring something up though that you brought up earlier, and let's just briefly go over why personal branding is important, right? Because
Sure.
we have a lot of uh, white belts, rookies, newbies in the game, because we're posting this in the in the UDC channel, in the the UDC group. And so a lot of these new kids are wondering why, right? Like, why is that important, right? And so the first thing that comes up, it's like, well, people need to know that you exist. right? And whether you believe that you have a brand or not, you have a brand. Like call it for whatever it is. I mean, because when I was coming up, it wasn't called branding, it was called something else, right? And it's just basically just like your image. What are you trying to portray? Right. And so it's like this avatar that we have. So for example, right, let's get a little weird right now. All right, you guys ready?
Perfect. Let's
All
go.
right,
I'm
cool.
ready.
So this meat suit that we walk around in, this is our fleshy avatar, right? My consciousness is embodied in this thing. Cool. So I work it out. I take care of it. I put tattoos. I put clothes on it. I have a certain look. You guys recognize me. That's Marco. Oh, look, that's Charlie. Oh, that's Wesley. Right. So this is like my physical form of branding. And then we get into this interface of, you know, the digital world, this other reality that we've created. And so now we show our best selves, right? Whatever it is, whether you're intentional about it or not. And so being in the sales game, we got to put attention on ourselves and let people know, hey, this is what we're doing. Now, there's different ways of going about it. What I appreciate about Charlie's branding is that he's not being a pompous dickhead about it.
Right? Yeah.
I try not to.
Because I think that's a big thing, is that a lot of times it's unfortunate. It can come off as a dick measuring contest.
Yeah, I agree.
and at that point, that shit starts becoming hilarious, because it's just like, oh damn, what is this now? What is this? This is just so entertaining. So there's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's all of that, and then it's more as well. And this is the thing as well, why it's so interesting for me anyway. There's no right or wrong way to do it, because you're just being yourself, and you may as well be yourself because everybody else is already taken. So you've only got one option, and that's just to be you. So there isn't like a right or a wrong way. There's just, this is what I do, this is why I do it, and this is what I feel like, based on my experiences and everything I know, is the best way to do it. Because I don't know any other way. This is just me, right? So I can only talk about the things I've done. And it's really weird. Like when you start talking about the mundane, normal shit that most people, or us anyway, would think is actually pretty boring because we all do it. Well, everybody else doesn't do it. So to them, this is fascinating. Like what you talk on a Zoom call with people from all over the world about virtual businesses. You choose your own hours. You don't have a boss. You work for yourself. You choose your own time. That's just the mundane for us. Like we take that for granted. But if you document that, that's somebody else's dream. Like our normality is somebody else's wake up in the midnight, cold sweats. Oh, wow. Imagine if life was like that. Well, for us, it is. And the way that we did it, well, that's what we're doing. That's exactly what personal branding is. It's just like a deep dive into how I got here and why I'm doing it. And there's a million ways to do it. But, you know, I think the way that we would all portray our normality is actually really, really exciting for someone else who isn't there.
That's a really good way to put that.
Yeah, I want to add.
I like that.
I want to add something to that. So it was a thought that came up, is that, you know, now remember what I was wanting to say in relation to all this. Your content creation that comes out of your brand, that comes out of you, is art.
Yeah.
It's art. It's a version of art, right? And so if this helps anybody out there who's listening, as far as just trying to make patterns, make connections, right? Trying to make it see, it helps to see things from a different perspective. So if you see your content, if you see your branding as art, as a personal expression of yourself in an art form, because that's what it is. If you really want to look at it that way, right? Like think about what you can do with that shit. You can take a screenshot of something that you put up and put it into a frame, and that would actually look pretty cool. That's some like modern day, you know, art right there. So one way to see your branding, one way to see your content, all the different forms, see it as art.
Yeah. And I also have a theme. Sorry, not to interrupt you, Charlie. So it sounds like Charlie was saying something at the beginning there, like authenticity, right? And you were saying like there's people that are kind of peacocking, where it's like they're showing the best side of themselves. But what resonates with, at least when I watch Charlie, is because, like, I mean, he's a cool guy. Like he's a good looking dude. He's got a cool life, but like he's kind of real. Like he's just having a conversation at a cafe or whatever, and he's just kind of like, hey, this is my life. And he's kind of documenting it. I like what you said about our normal is other people's dream, where they wake up and sweat about it. I did write something down. You said, I don't know which one of you said it, but it's a good point to make. So like, Marco said we all have a brand, right? So I was just thinking about this, and it's actually a little bit convicting because I have like zero personal brand online. And so it almost reflects as that's my brand. Like my brand is the type of guy that isn't visible, or like, So it's almost like if you don't have a brand, that is your brand. Your brand is like, you're just, what are you doing? You're just dicking around, I guess. So
but you
I guess
do,
it's a little bit,
but you
I have a
do,
little bit like the
because you
people
just
that know me, people
doing
that know
this
me.
though,
Yeah.
doing
Doing this is
this.
huge.
Yeah,
Huge. Like, this
doing
is
this.
so different. No, sorry, Marco, you go.
No, I was going to say, I mean, just doing this is already creating your brand. You're already doing this. Not a lot of people are doing this, right? There's levels of getting the message out. And the very first, most comfortable one is written text on the white screen, right? Where it's just something simple and a couple of paragraphs. That's like the first foray into that, where it's just like dipping your toe in. We're like, okay, because it's anxiety inducing, because it's like, what are people going to think? And so then it's like I would say the biggest one, as far as like, you got the, written text, and then the one that goes to the other side of it is something like this.
Yeah.
We literally are going to have, let's say anywhere between 50 to 100 people that are going to watch this, and we have no idea who they are.
And then they'll see, like, they'll take a little aspect which we might just run over, because again, it's very normal for us, right? But they might hear like a little golden nugget and think, yeah, I should go and do it. Because like now it's crazy the amount of messages I get by like random blokes who I've never met. I don't even know who they are, and they'll be like, I needed to hear this today. Like, I needed that. And in reality, it's just like me just talking about the same things I would talk to any of you about. But when you hear it, don't go looking for it. And I think that's what hits people the most. They'll just be scrolling, right? That mindless scrolling, bang, out of nowhere. They're not looking for anything. They don't even realize they're looking for a message. They'll hear something. It will trigger something. They'll be like, yeah, I do need to get up and do that thing I said I was going to do. It's really cool. And also, like, the way I think of it as well, bit of a tangent here, gonna go with it anyway, is like, personal branding is just attention. And there's a reason why so many people exceed others who have more skill and talent in that particular field. Let's take Jake Paul. Let's take the Kardashians. And this is something I was talking about with JD not too long ago. There are 2 billionaires in the Kardashian family. I'm not really into makeup, but I would sort of make the argument there's probably better makeup artists in the world than the Kardashian family. But because of attention, they have a bigger brand. Right? And that's just personal branding. That's it. It doesn't mean they have more skill. It doesn't mean they have more intelligence. They just have a better brand, so people know who they are, and they'll go with the popular one over the one who might be actually better, but no one knows who that is. So I'm going to go with this because it's well known. People understand it, and I want to be tailored and associated with something that's popular. And you can really, really like bring that down to raw basics when it comes to sales. You could be a terrible salesperson, have a really good personal brand. Best salesperson on the planet, no branding at all. Well, the business owner is going to only look for what is on the radar. Bang, personal branding. They look like they know what they're talking about. That will get you through the door at least.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Very well said. Yeah, very well said.
There's a saying, where attention goes, energy flows. So the branding, the content creation, whatever you want to call it, yeah, that is getting eyes on. That is sending that energy that way.
Yeah, definitely. And there was something I heard the other day, which I actually looked into, because I was speaking to Wes, like, I think last week or whatever it was. And I was just going through other shit, and I just found this quote about personal branding. Personal branding is what people will say about you when you're not in the room. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's the effect it can have.
Another word for it, reputation.
Wait, what does that mean? Personal branding, maybe I'm just tired.
Like, you can
Personal
go into a
branding is
room, you
something.
can talk, and you can articulate, and you can have a million conversations. But your personal branding is the conversations you're having with people when you're not even there. It's the reputation.
Yeah, I got you.
Right?
Yeah.
And that stuck with me. Like, I was like, wow, yeah, that's true. Like, it's so huge, especially in what we do.
I wanted to bring something back that Charlie, you brought up when you're talking about how you'll get random folks thanking you for putting what you put up. And so I think there's got to be a certain intentionality. Good God, I got to practice that word. You guys know what I'm trying to say, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, English is my second language. So anyways.
Killing it. You're killing it.
So what I'm saying is this, right? Is that as an individual, you can make that choice of creating inspirational content. Right. Usually when I think about it that way, it's usually geared towards my younger self. or
Yeah.
somebody who's a few steps behind who can use some help. And that way
Yeah.
we can inspire, motivate people with whatever it is that we're putting out, because now we become a force for good. Because there's a lot of there, because in the early days, and still to this day, you'll still hear a lot of people say, well, social media is crap, social media is this, social media, a lot of negative shit about social media. I used to be part
Right.
of that camp where I was like, yeah, that's true. But then I was like, wait a minute, as I was shifting my perspective and realizing, hold on, dude, there's a whole different side to this thing where I can use this as a force for good and actually put something out that's going to affect somebody's day in a positive.
Very true.
I,
And I
I,
like sorry, no, where's you go?
I was just gonna say, yeah, there's like a lot of selfless low hanging fruit with branding. Like you can really impact, like even just this podcast. Marcos, you've probably experienced this too, but I have people that I never met or whatever that I didn't even know watched it, and they reach out and they're like, dude, I really resonate with that one thing that you guys said or whatever. I'm like, you watched till 20 minutes into the thing. So it's really, so that's cool. But also I'm actually honest, I'm gonna be honest, I'm having kind of an epiphany with what something Charlie was saying, because I was talking to one of my best friends in person about wanting perspective this year. And Charlie, you were saying that it almost gives you perspective when you like put yourself out there and realize that you're not in a vacuum. Like there's actually people, like you can become grateful just for where you're at. And I feel grateful right now just thinking about it. Like I actually am very privileged right now. Like I'm in a position in life where like there are people that are wishing that they had the friendships that we have, or they don't have to worry about where they're getting their next meal or whatever it is. So like to have that feedback loop where you can see like you're not living in a vacuum, I guess, is really important, even just for that aspect. Forget like the recruiters and the salespeople are going to see you, like just for your own personal selfish gain of just like having a renewed perspective. What do you think about that? Is that where would you say that ranks on like your, I guess, priority list for you when you do personal branding?
Probably like it's got to be top, because I don't think sales is it. I think sales is one of the best vehicles I have access to right now that will give me freedom. It's the closest thing I have to completely living life on my term right now. But personal branding, in my opinion, shouldn't always just be for the thing you've got going on. It should be for the person that you want to be later on as well. Because the conversations, the connections, the people you're going to meet where you are now might not have anything to do with sales. Like we've all got business owners that we talk to who aren't hiring, but they're just business owners. And maybe later on down the line, we will want to start our own business, and they already do that thing really well. So we've actually, just by having them as a connection, doesn't mean we're going to sell for them. But if later on down the line we want to open a business similar to them, well, what we've really done is just cut that learning curve in half because we already know the person. So I think personal branding as a vehicle to do other things is so good. It's sales now because we're in sales, but it's you because you are more than sales too, if you kind of know what I mean. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope it did.
No, your network is your net worth. That's
right.
That's something that a lot of billionaires say.
There's that aspect, and there's also the other part too, where you're showcasing yourself as more than just a one-dimensional being.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
And I think that can. So there's this concept, there's this book, this guy Brad Stolberg, and he talks about rugged flexibility, and he talks about the dangers of being a one-dimensional person. So if your whole identity is stuck on this one thing, so say for example, you're just like super sales god, and everything about you is sales, 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 sales. Well, pardon my French here, but what's going to happen to you, motherfucker, when you've got 3 weeks of no sales? And your whole identity is contingent upon that, right?
Yeah, you've got nothing else.
So then this whole idea of rugged flexibility, it's like, okay, what are the other sides of you? I think that makes a very interesting personal brand where it's like, okay, you got the personal, you got the professional. To a certain extent, how personal do you want to get? Right. Myself, I'm very private. I like to keep my family life very private because it's like it's social media. It's like, all right. But as far as the professional stuff, the entertaining stuff, that's a little bit different. Showing the different sides of self, right? To be a multifaceted individual, right? We are using this as a vehicle for networking as well, right? It's just, and it's also solidifying our friendship, right? I mean, the three of us, and also with Chance, like we're gonna have to get him on, so we're the four of us on this show to do our reunion because because we've been friends now, the four of us, for what, 2 years, I think.
Yeah, 2 years, crazy.
Right? Yeah, 2 years. And so this is a very, very powerful thing, and it's a very subtle and in some way, if you want to look at it, it's a simple thing to do that you can just do on a daily. And sometimes you can like do a lot of it, and sometimes you can just do a little bit of it. And it's okay as long as you're staying consistent. It's kind of like going to the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of going to the gym, I really like your personal branding, Marco. It's sick.
My training montages.
Spartan workouts.
Yeah. I mean, put it this way. How many other people do you have currently now on your news feeds doing the same thing that you're doing?
Rare. With the very, I've not found, even on Instagram, I haven't come across anyone doing a similar aesthetic. I've seen guys do the philosophical, esoteric, psychological quotes, but they're not putting a black and white filter. I'm like, you missed the mark with that one, buddy. Come on.
That's killer. And your authenticity is almost like that key level to success, because I don't have anyone, zero people on my news feeds or anything that I see usually is like what you're doing. So, I don't know why you're doing it, but you can make the argument that you are the only one doing that because you just genuinely enjoy doing that. But very quickly, there's a reason. And you're just doing it, but you don't even probably feel like you're doing it with intent. Like, it's sick, and it's obviously going to hit and impact a lot of people. And you must have loads of people hitting you up like, yeah, I needed to hear that, because it is really inspirational, no? Here's
why I do it. This is something that I know from my background as an actor, right? From my background as a philosopher, as a fighter, and all these things. Everybody loves a good training montage. Like I would say that's the favorite part of any action film, is when the hero has gotten beat down and now he's got to go back and rebuild himself. Like that's the part like where you get like, oh my God, I want to go work out after that, right? So,
absolutely.
Right. And so then what you're doing is, in this case, and this is something that JD has mentioned as well, is that I'm capitalizing on this thing that I'm disciplined about. One of the most disciplined things that I am about is my training, right? That's the non-negotiable. That is my feel-good drug of the day. That's going to set me up for fucking forever, right? I add that in, I do it. And then I also have a love for philosophy, psychology, all kinds of cool stuff. And then I throw a quote on there. Now, what I'm doing is I'm juxtaposing two supposed separate worlds. But when you think about like the, Greek ideal of what a strong man is, it's that combination of physicality and intellect.
Yeah.
Right. And so
and I will say, like, your stuff is working too. Like, you are one of the most grounded people that I know. And I'm not just saying that because I tell you this, in our recording, our audios and stuff that we send each other too, but your work ethic, all that stuff works. Like, when I come to you complaining, venting, because I'm usually veered toward a negative mindset, you always kind of just like reset it. And it's very helpful. So, and also a lot of people in this space know who you are, even if it's like, you're not trying to attack it from a specific angle. Everyone knows who Marco is, right? That's why Natalie wants to like interview you when she does her thing. So yeah, and personal branding for me, like, is the reason we're here today talking, because I wouldn't have had an offer with no experience unless I was like interviewing top people and like showing them that I have the traits of a top performer and stuff like that. So the fact that I was like, back in 2022, early 2022, when I was doing more personal branding stuff, that's the only reason that we're talking today, is because like, otherwise, like Charlie would have said, I would have just been some guy with potential that no one ever heard about. Right. So,
right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I've really been sleeping on it, but as I say, like, this year has to be even going even harder with the personal branding, because if I stay consistent with it for the rest of the year, and again, it's like I'm not really trying to add more time to what I'm already doing, because all I've really done is take away the amount of time I'm looking at random shit that doesn't help me, and exchange the same amount of time to recording content that I feel good about. It's a bit of accountability too. I get things off my chest. I feel good about myself, and then it helps other people. So, I'm not even adding
transference of energy.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not even adding time onto my day. I'm just, okay, so no more shit, good shit. That's it. It's the same time. So, and it works, man. It's really, really cool. I'd love this year to like perhaps, maybe the personal branding goes a little bit further, and then you know, maybe I can help other people out on like Zoom calls and things like that. Because I've had people hit me up like, "Oh, bro, I'd love you to like hop on a call with me and coach me and blah blah blah." I'm like, "Whoa, okay,
Wow.
that's actually very sick." But I was never thinking about it like that. And yeah, maybe that will be a plan later. But for now, it's January. It's just I'm on a fucking killer move, man. Let's all do it. Let's all kill it. What's the
Yeah.
plans for 2024, boys? What have you got in the pipeline? What are the goals? Let's hear it.
You go first, Marco.
Just keep doing what I'm doing and improving
Love it.
upon
Love
that,
it.
and just improve upon. It's a continual process of improving.
Yes.
It's in a continual process of honing in more focus, a continual process of honing in more discipline. And that's what it is, right? You know, we talk about we're scrolling. Oh, I might as well do something. That's one of
Yeah.
the things that it's such a, I'm like, what am I doing, dude? What the fuck? Right. It's like, I've got mega issues and shit that I'm still working on. And that shit's never going to go away. And so the work is to just continually work on it, to minimize the bullshit and to
Yep.
increase the good shit.
Love that.
Yeah.
Very
Basically.
well.
Yeah, so my word, I like to find a word that I can just kind of align to for the year. So my word this year is devotion. It draws out a lot of emotion for me. So I'm in a new relationship right now. I'm trying to focus on that. It's really just a lot of like self-care stuff, like a lot of like self-love, going to therapy, which I've avoided for like 6 years. Doing like a lot of self-care this year, a lot of just devotion to my ideals, despite how I feel, just like loving myself, loving other people, and focusing on just like the 1% gains. So it's a lot of self-care and stuff this year. And I personally believe like by the end of this year, I won't even be recognizable. Not because I'm making these drastic 180 changes overnight, but just because I'm like stacking those blocks and my mindset's in a really good place to where I can kind of evolve like that. So
Compounding. Amazing, man. Well, that's, you know, and the thing about both of those as well is it isn't going to be easy, but it is realistic. And if you apply that consistency, it's going to be very hard to not get there. But most people, and I'm glad both of you said that, because most people say like the craziest, this year I'm gonna hit 10 million in sales, you know, and it's not that that's unrealistic, but I feel like it's a lot of pressure. And also, if you just have that one thing that you stay consistent with all year round, you're going to be fine. And that's okay. Don't measure it by like a number,
but
maybe,
also
but
who cares, right? Like look at how good of a
right.
life you have, right? You're traveling and stuff, you're partying with JD. Like, do
Yeah.
you need to hit 10 million to be satisfied? I don't know.
Well, it's cool you say that as well, right? Because sales is usually, well, everyone sees sales as like that sleazy, we just get money, right? And it's a way of making money, but it's also what I've started realizing is, and I'd love both your takes on it. It's like, if you're happy, do you need to go crazy and like, you know, spend all of your time into working? Or unless your work creates happiness, then that's fine. But like, it should also just be like a vehicle for you to just be satisfied and live a good life. I mean, that's my take on it. What do you guys think?
There's a point of diminishing returns.
Okay.
This is what I mean by that. And it's one of these things that doesn't get spoken about. And we talked about it last time in the last episode. The not so desirable, ugly side of things, right? The cost of success. There is a cost to everything. And what's the cost that one's willing to pay? And that depends on every single person, right? If you're a single guy, if you're a family man, right? How hard to grind, how hard to go after it, at what expense, to where you lose your family potentially, to where, you know, everything that you've valued, but you have this thing of success. So it really, you know, how do you gauge that balance? And then it's up to every individual. Now I do got to remind us that we're running out of time.
I want to leave with this quote because it's exactly what we're talking about. So you have to be willing to, like, what are you gonna sacrifice and stuff like that. And it's from Conor McGregor. You guys have probably heard this quote. I'm gonna read it.
I know the quote. Yes, go on.
And because everything he accomplished came with the price, right? So he says, "I lost my mind in this game, like Vincent van Gogh. He dedicated his life to his craft and lost his mind in the process. That's happening to me, but fuck it. When that gold belt is around my waist, when my mother has a big mansion, when my girlfriend has a different car for every day of the week, when my kids have everything they ever want, then it will pay. And he manifested all of that. Now, whether or not that's we need that in our lives, but yeah. Anyways, just to end with that.
No, amazing quote and a great ending point to a fantastic podcast with two fantastic people. Yeah, thanks guys. I'd love to, you've said about highways, I can't even throw a quote after that one. I'm just gonna let the Al Natural take control. But thank you, boys. I genuinely appreciate it. It's been nice to catch up more than anything. And 2024 is a year of greatness, and I'm surrounded by two versions of that right now. So
love you, bro. Love you.
No. All right, chaps. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right, folks. Have a good one. Thank you. And people watching, if you got any ideas, any topics that you guys want us to cover, leave something in the comments and we'll definitely bring it up. And just thank you for showing up, gentlemen. That is a wrap.
In a bit. Cheers, boys.